Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Wholeness with Hannah. Today, I am joined by Giselle La Pompe-Moore. She is the author of Take It In and founder of the CD Lab, where she brings together culture, consciousness, and change for her unique blend of critical thinking, care, and human insight. She's a speaker and has also worked as a trauma-sensitive meditation teacher, Reiki Master, and spiritual guide. Giselle's been described by Vogue as the woman redefining spirituality for the millennial crowd, and her work's been featured across BBC, ELLE, Channel 4, Grazia, and more. I wanted this conversation to explore what it really means to do the work beyond the buzzwords and the constant self-improvement. And Giselle's work really focuses on what it means to be human, to feel, to question, to heal, and to live with presence and awareness in this messy, modern world. Giselle has such a grounded, real approach to healing and growth, and I know you're going to take so much from this one. So let's get into it. Hello, Giselle.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited. So for anyone that isn't familiar with your work, do you want to just tell us kind of how you describe what you do and how you got there?
For sure. I think my work all encompasses or is centered around what it means to be human and our connections that we have to ourselves, to each other, and to this beautiful, incredible planet that we call home. And I think it's that connection that I've always been really fascinated by. So in the early days of my career, when I was working with clients in session work, when I was doing Reiki or tarot or just having conversations in a therapeutic way, it was that connection with self that I was really interested in, and how that connection then expands into your relationships, how you move through your workspace. And then over time, it then became, okay, well, like now for the CD Lab, I'm really interested in the connections that we have that ground us in something larger. So after working in wellness, I was just thinking to myself, well, okay, more people are becoming well, but fundamentally the systems are still broken. And we're working in places that feel very unwell to be in. So those connections feel like a huge part of what it means to be human and how we can get to know ourselves on a deeper level.
Amazing. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the CD Lab?
Yes. So I wanted to launch something after working for the last 8 years on a very one-to-one basis or in group workshops on, mental and emotional well-being predominantly and spiritual well-being. And I wanted to ground that into culture at large. It's where, my background originated from, working in fashion, in beauty, in PR, journalism, really across the entirety of like that brand landscape. And I really saw that brands and spaces, cultural spaces, have such huge power and impact. If you're scrolling down your feeds, you're just seeing brand after brand after brand. And I do really believe that how they speak to you as not only a consumer, but as a human being is invaluable. If you only, see a bunch of adverts in a day, seeing one that really speaks to you and touches you deeply can move the needle for you. So I was really interested in how brands are speaking to their consumers. I was also really interested in public policy, in how governments and systems and institutions have a role that means that we have more depth, we have more humanness, we have more aliveness. The CD stands for Creative, Cultural and Civic Depth, and depth is the word I really think is what we need for what's next. We're missing so much of that. Everything that we do right now feels so shallow. It feels very, it's a plague of sameness. We're losing imagination and all of that stuff. And the way that we kind of get back to that is just by unearthing, going into the soil, seeing what's there. And ultimately, if we can add depth back to the spaces where it's been missing, then we just have a bit more of a chance of creating some meaningful change.
Yeah, I love that. Why do you think we have lost so much depth?
I think for all of these conversations, I just always ask who benefits. And there's just so many people who benefit, so many organizations and institutions that benefit from us staying on the surface. If you're a population who's never thinking or feeling, then you are open to being manipulated. You're very vulnerable. If you think about the biggest changes you've had in your life personally, they've come from deep inquiry. It's as simple as if someone says to you, how are you doing? You just say, oh, I'm fine. You miss so much self-exploration by asking yourself a deeper question. So if, as a society, we aren't connecting to ourselves, each other, the planet, then that's perfect for a lot of people in power, right? If we all started to care for each other really deeply, there would be no division. We wouldn't allow, wars and conflicts if we were connected to our neighbors. We wouldn't be seeing race riots and bigotry and fascism if we were connected to each other. And if we were connected to ourselves, then we wouldn't be, so vulnerable to different marketing techniques. We wouldn't be vulnerable to so much that we can have more control over if we focused on things that had more meaning.
Yeah, and it's about, questioning yourself, questioning your role in the world. And I guess a lot of people kind of feel that this is it, this is life. I maybe go to school, maybe go to university if I can, get a job, get married, have a baby, be in a 9-to-5, and never really question it. And I think that can lead us on to doing the work. So your book, Take It In, is amazing. I read it. I picked it up in She's Lost Control on Broadway Market a while ago now. And, doing the work is something that gets thrown around, the words. So what does doing the work mean to you?
I think when I was going to come up with a book title, I was already probably a couple of chapters in, and I had so many different ideas of what it could be. And I just thought to myself, well, that's kind of everything, because when you take it in, it means you then have this different approach to the world outside of you. And obviously we say take it in all the time in popular conversation. But for me, doing the work really is about this return to self, and that return to self being a place without the conditioning, without the shoulds, without the norms, without society telling you who you should be, but actually who you are underneath those labels. And as we said before, there's a path that we're told is the only path that we should follow. And if you're not doing that, it requires a lot of questioning. It requires a lot of inquiry. It requires community. And if you're not doing that work, you will fall into that path. And that path is for some people.
Yeah.
But how do you know unless you've questioned it? And I've always said, since I was actually quite small, that a choice can never be a choice unless it's been questioned. So even if you choose that same path that we're all told to be on, still do the work to get back to your yes. And even if you do the work, I think we have this assumption that it'll be really clear. There's not always clarity, but the process of questioning, the process of inquiry, the process of healing is one that adds so much richness and beauty and aliveness to your life that it's always worth doing. It feels like shit, but it's always worth doing. And the work isn't only, writing in your journal and being really sad and, feeling all the feelings. It's also being alive and witnessing and observing all that there is in this human experience.
Yeah, it can be such a confronting experience as well. And, I believe that is why a lot of people don't do it, because it is confronting, and, it's facing your shadows, it's all the things. But when, as you say in your book a lot, the stuff, you call it, we all have stuff. And the more you're willing to look at your stuff, uncover your stuff, I think it dictates the depth of your life experience. So when people, you used to do a lot of one-to-one sessions, you don't do so much anymore. So how do you help people do the work? Because if someone's like, okay, I want to do the work, well, do you want to do the work is the first question, because as you said, it's not easy to face your shadows. But where would you say people should start?
I think one of the first questions I would always ask in sessions, the first one was, just bring me up to speed on what's been moving, how you're feeling, what's making you really angry right now, what's feeling beautiful and joyful. And just even in that question, if you're willing to go beyond the surface of, just being busy, then so much comes out of just that question. I remember I had a few clients who they're just like, no one's asked me that in a real way for a very long time. So about half an hour into the session, they were still answering that question, which to me is, such a magical place to be in, because all of your stuff is welcome here. And I think we often dismiss how important all of the stuff is. We rarely give it the time it needs, because, we're a very unapologetic group of people. We're a very apologetic group of people. Yeah. There is often this, if you start crying, someone shoves a tissue in your face.
Or says, don't cry.
Don't cry.
Yeah.
Calm down. There's always a suppression of feeling in our culture that is often rewarded. We look at people who are very busy and stoic as they're great leaders because they can just get on with it. So when you ask someone that question of what are you carrying right now, and you allow it all to spill out, there is something really profound in that. And you can do that for yourself. It's, you know, in your journal or with a friend, it's just allowing all of what's here to exist. And then from that place, we just keep going deeper and pulling those threads out and asking why. Yeah, I think that question of why is huge. You know, if you're feeling sad, why? And sometimes we don't know, but sometimes the body might tell us why we're feeling sad. And if we can just say, well, I'm feeling sadness in my chest right now, that's a deeper level of inquiry. And I would often use tools that would help that process. So the way that I would use, for example, practices like tarot would be in a very therapeutic way to just unearth. It'll be almost like we're speaking to this third party that can bring in some deeper conversation. So if we pulled a card and it would be like the devil, for example, everyone's like, ugh, gross, this is terrifying. Yeah. I'm like, no, this is very good, this is very exciting. And it's exciting because it means we have something, a prompt for that level of inquiry, a prompt for the work. And just seeing that card and the symbolism, and then for me as a reader, it invites in that question for you, which is, it's never about your behaviors or your actions, it's the shame that you then bring yourself into. So if, for example, you aren't exercising as much as you would like to, and the devil card pops up, this is not about you not exercising, but it's how much shame and blame do you bring yourself into when you're not exercising. Right. And then that is like a whole nother level of conversation, and potentially childhood stuff comes out. It could be that you witness that from your parents. There's so much that comes out from a simple prompt and an invitation to go there.
Yeah, and it's such a journey, isn't it? Like, whew, I mean, when I look back over the last few years of my life, there's always stuff to uncover. And yes, like, you know, there's big stuff that I've uncovered and I'm aware of, and I've kind of integrated that. But do you think someone really does need to be ready to uncover that? Because as you said, we've picked up stuff for our whole life. A lot of it is childhood. We build our beliefs between 0 and 7. It's a long time ago. Well, for me anyway. But yeah, I think there's this element of, I mean, yeah, you have to be ready, but you can start small, right? You know, it's a different journey for everyone, and everyone is having their own unique journey. And there's not this pressure to do it the same as everyone else.
Yeah, I think there can be this, I do think it's important that you feel ready to do the work. Yeah. However, there is often either you feel ready, it becomes a conscious choice, or life just like will make you go into the work. I think it can happen in two ways. One obviously feels more confronting than the other. So there's been times of, and I think also there's no start and end date of the work, right? It's ongoing perpetually. Yeah. And there's times of my life where I've made the conscious choice, okay, I'm ready to look at this specific thing. Yeah. And it felt like a choice. I've gone into therapy with it. I've done my inner work around it. And it felt like, okay, I'm ready for this because it keeps coming up. It feels really loud. So I'm going to choose to go into this and to understand it more. And there's, of course, been times when I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I've gone like kicking and screaming into it, thinking, I'm not ready to do that yet, but my life is crumbling, so I have to do it. Yeah. And I think it can be any way that you enter into it. It's just knowing that once you get there, it's like, how can you have compassion for the parts that aren't ready? Yeah. And sometimes it is that, like, can I have some kindness and softness for the parts that are still kicking and screaming their way into the session or into my journal or into the meditation? Because there will be parts of you that are like, I'm ready for the work. I want to learn more. I want to discover more. I want change. I want growth. But there will be parts that are like, this is gross and really scary to look at, and I don't want to play the game today.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest shifts for me were when I was willing to confront the parts of myself that I used to run from. And that is when it's completely transformational and life-changing. But often I see people, or I talk to people, and they say, I'm aware of my patterns. I'm aware I do this. Like maybe, you know, they attract the relationship that ultimately doesn't serve them because they're trying to be a savior or something like that. And do you think there gets a point where you can be aware of your patterns, you can know them, but how do you shift them? And that's where like energy work and somatic work changed the game for me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when I was writing the book and I was working through this metaphor of, you know, we've all got stuff, and throughout the book you kind of get to identify what your stuff is. And that stuff changes all the time. So in the duration that you might be reading that book, and lots of my readers have said to me that it just lives with them, the book lives with them, because your stuff continues to change. So I remember when I was doing exercises myself that I got in the book, when I was writing it, I was like, oh, I'm very aware of what my stuff is right now. And I remember at the time I was writing the book, I had I was really working through this feeling that I wasn't lovable. And that was like the loudest thing that I was working through. And now I'm just like, I don't know who that girl is. Like, I just don't feel that. But I know all the work that I did to not feel that anymore. So at the time, I had a huge amount of awareness. I knew I didn't feel lovable. I knew where that came from. I knew the patterns. I knew that it was impacting who I was choosing relationally in both friendships and romantic relationships. I could see how it was showing up in my career. I knew it intimately, but I still felt it. And you can carry that for a long time. You can carry the knowing and the awareness of something and not yet have the tools or the life experiences to change it. And I think sometimes where we need, again, that I love Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion, because we always need that dose of self-compassion, because we have no idea why the shift isn't happening. And it could just be as simple as you've just not had the experiences to play it out. I actually think that we often, our brains get so accustomed to that story, it feels real even when the story's already left.
Yeah.
So for a long time, I felt unlovable, but I'd actually really done the work to feel lovable. And I was just waiting for the circumstances, the situations to then be able to practice it more. And I remember with that particular story, I wrote down, I think I still got it on my phone, I wrote down on one of those really 2 a.m. notes app sessions, I just wrote down, it's too heavy to keep carrying this, so I'm choosing not to.
Yeah.
And the next day I had this like, where was I really attached to my own brand of suffering? Where was I so attached to that story when I know that I've done the work to not feel that anymore?
Yeah, that's so interesting, because we can, can't we? We can know, but be attached to the suffering. And it makes me think of Caroline Mace's work. Do you know Caroline Mace? She's quite a famous medical intuitive, and she talks about I love her work, but she talks about woundology and how we get so attached to our wounds because they're so familiar to us. And also, like, the woundology bit is, that's how you identify yourself, and you sort of, it's about when you're a victim. So, you think, if I actually let this wound go, then I'm not going to be able to talk about it anymore, and I'm not going to be able to connect with people on the same wound. And I just find that really fascinating, because it makes a lot of sense. If you're ready to really release it, you need to release it and not keep going over about it. But it sometimes feels safe to us to stay in our wounds, doesn't it? And I think that's a big block to doing the work.
Yeah, and there's safety in that. There's safety in it. And I think the last 2 years, me and my friends were, who are also inner work girlies, we always find this thing to hyper focus on for the whole year. And this year was about envy.
Right.
And there was so much stuff around envy, both the fear of being envied and how that makes us small and shrink, and also the fear of then being the one who's having envy for somebody else. And what we all identified was this thing with that woundology piece, which is, I want to have something that makes me feel relatable and that you can connect to me. So if I name this wound or this story that I have, I'm hoping that will make me shrink enough that you then feel comfortable. Yeah. And we've not even asked the person if they're uncomfortable or not, right? We just have that assumption. So it could be anything. And, I think especially women, we do it so often. It's, if someone celebrates you for having a really big career, when it's like, well, I don't have any money. Or if someone's like, well, how you got this really amazing podcast? Yeah, but I couldn't pay my rent last month. It's like, there's always this thing, right? You always find this thing
a little way to turn that dimmer down.
Yeah, and it happens a lot with those really big stories that you carry. It becomes this safety valve of, this is my particular way that I'm suffering and that I'm finding it this really hard. So if you have something that you're finding hard, if I bring up mine, it's now a way that we can connect. And in that human desire to have connection and belonging, our wounds are such a great way to do that, which is again why the work can be so complex. It's not this A to Z, we just get through it in this linear way. It's cyclical, because there'll be moments where it benefits us to have that story.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? Envy is such a big one. I have worked so much on that myself and with my mentor and through Reiki, because I definitely held a big belief or a big wound that it wasn't safe to be seen, because I had, things growing up at school and things where people envied me that was something out of my control. And I didn't realise how much I was holding on that and how much I would dim my light. And that is something I've worked so hard on. There's actually a bit in your book where you talk about how when you connect to yourself, when you do the work, you become so much more unapologetic. And it's something I really work on every single day, because I will catch myself. Even yesterday, something amazing happened yesterday, and I got to do an interview, and I was like, well, I'm not going to tell anyone. And then I was like, why am I not telling anyone? That again, I'm really good at catching myself, but it's so old, and I've shifted a lot of it. And then but it's the catching it. I give myself compassion. I'm like, no, tell people, shine unapologetically. There's a paragraph in your book where you talk about, you know, you say, I am unapologetic. I love myself. I believe in myself. And I think that is so important. And that is something I try and do every single day, because the more we shine our light, the more we give other people permission to shine their light. But it is hard when, especially in this kind of world where women are often pitted against each other. And it's like, if I share that success, am I boasting? Am I gloating? And what do you think about that bit?
Yeah, I think what you named there is so powerful, which is it's ancient. And I think what's so important about knowing there's a part that is really old and really ancient, which may be yours or not yours. I was on a panel last night, we were talking about the witch wound. And the witch wound lives in so many of us because, granted, we weren't there for the witch trials, right? We may or may not have direct ancestors who were. However, if you're seeing in history that women who were bold, empowered, strong, unapologetic, who did energy work, who did herbalism, if you're seeing their persecution, your body's going to read that as it's not safe for me to express, it's not safe for me to shine. So just with that in itself, we're going to always take up less space. And there's a song that I love by the artist Sophia Isella, and it's called Everybody Supports Women. And the line goes, everybody supports women until a woman's doing better than you. Everybody wants you to love yourself until you actually do. Yeah. And it's just so powerful, because there is that really insidious part of society that says that, well, yes, you should love yourself and you should shine. But when you do, it can't be too big and too bright. Yeah. Because that will then make another woman feel uncomfortable. And also, when you know that something's ancient and may or may not be yours, it may be ancestral, it may be from society, or a mix of all of them, it means that your journey with that will continuously change. So when I wrote my book, I felt so unapologetically myself, and I lost that in the last couple of years. And I spent the last year and a half really trying to get back to that. And people have often, like you said, like read that book and said, wow, like you're so this woman. And at the time I really was. And then life happens and circumstances happen, and you lose that, because there was always this ancient part of me that felt like I'm not inherently worthy. And it fluctuates depending on different things, different seasons. And when you know your stuff, you know that it's subject to change. It's going to be sporadic. And I never once, in the time I was trying to get back to that, said to myself, oh, I've lost that then. Well, I'm not that girl anymore. I just knew that I've not gone backwards. I'm just in a new cycle of that, because it's designed to get us deeper and deeper into the new truth. So if my new truth or the story is one of self-love and worthiness and being unapologetic, the levels of depth have to change. So in 2020, 2022, it was a certain level of depth for where I needed to be in my life at that point. And now, as I'm older and wiser, I've got different challenges, different life experiences, that level of worth has to keep increasing. So it doesn't mean that the work has disappeared or you're not that person, but depending on where you are situationally, the work has to evolve with you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no. And like, it comes back to compassion as well, doesn't it? When you realize you're having these moments of like, oh my God, I'm questioning myself. That's also okay. Because the fact that you have that in you, you have the tools to come back to it. And kind of, I often talk to myself and I'm like, no, one thing for me is, as long as I am really being authentic to myself, I can stand in my power, because I'm like, it doesn't have to be received perfectly by everyone else. That is fine. But as long as I know, I really believe that what I'm doing is authentically me, and I feel passionately about it, and it's my purpose, then I think I can hack it. It's okay. I can stand in my power and I can be more visible, because I believe to like the core that I'm doing things I'm meant to do. And not everyone is going to like that, because the more you do shine, the more you are shining a light on their shadows, and people are thinking, it kind of gets their back up a bit. But I've got so much more okay with that, and more okay with being visible and seen. And yeah, I love myself. I do a lot of mirror. I talk to myself in the mirror all the
it's just so powerful. And I think there's I remember I did this video once and I said, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like what you do or who you are. Even if you are, you know, one of the world's most like famous people, I mean, even especially then, right?
That's also envy.
100%. It's like just your existence is going to deeply trouble someone.
Definitely.
And you just have to exist anyway. You have to shine anyway. You have to be yourself anyway. Because you can never please anyone. And people just not be pleased. And that's like the worst that's going to happen. They just won't be pleased. And that's not our burden to carry. Like the burden of being ourselves in a society that wants us to not be ourselves is a big enough burden. I can't control whether you'll like my existence or not. And it doesn't absolve us of the work. I think, you know, in so much of that therapy speak, we can be so boundaried that if someone doesn't like something that we've done, we can go straight into that defensive, well, I don't care anymore because I'm being myself. And it's like, no, we can see and hold space of where are we causing harm or where are we hurting someone to, this is not mine to carry. And I can be, I can hold what is mine and I can hold what isn't mine. And I think if you can have that balance between the two, it's a really lovely place to be in.
Yeah, so powerful. And that makes me think of, as I said, I used to have a bit of a saviour wound. And it was often, I can save you, I can help, it's okay, I can tell you what you need to do. And what really flipped it for me was by me trying to do that, I am taking away someone's lesson. I am taking away them showing up for themselves and actually having to sit in their own discomfort, which is where the magic happens. And by me being like, wait, you don't have to feel like this, we can change it, I can sort it, you should do this, this and this. I was, you know, trying to save them because it made me uncomfortable that they were uncomfortable. And letting that go has been life-changing and amazing, because obviously I do a lot of Reiki sessions and healing sessions, and you're holding space for someone. You're not solving their problems, you're holding space for them to solve their own problems. And it's just beautiful to witness. But I don't feel uncomfortable doing it anymore. I think actually this is the gift. You are sitting in your discomfort and that is where the magic happens. You cannot come out the other side unless you sit in the discomfort. You know, the only way out is through it. And I feel so differently about that part of the work now. To let someone sit in their own discomfort. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, isn't it, when you're a space holder and you're holding people's discomfort for any amount of time, whether it is like an hour session to an extended period of time together, and you can just see so clearly like the magic and growth is coming because you know they're engaging in it. And it's so hard to be in that darkness. It's so hard to be in the discomfort. It's so hard to like dance with the dark goddesses, right? But then when you know and you've done it once, you're just like, I see what's coming. It feels shit. I know I'm going to move through it if you engage in it. And I think there can be lots of, you know, conversations, people who are not in this work who often say, well, not everyone who's had periods of darkness gets to the shiny thing at the end. And that is true. I think we're all here to learn different things. We're all here to experience different things. It's not cause and effect. It's not that anytime you have a darkness, there will be light at the end. There are times when it just is dark. But in another area of your life, the cycle flows differently. And I just trust in that implicitly. And we can't ever compare our path to somebody else's. There's 8 billion people here. We're not all supposed to have the same things. And we also have at different points the times where, you know, I myself or my clients or people that I know have had dark, then dark, then dark, then dark, then dark. It's often because we didn't have the capacity to engage in it, to then get to a truth, a lesson, understanding and awareness. We just had to survive it. And that's okay. And that's really, really valid. But what you said really rang true there about witnessing someone's discomfort. I remember when I was first starting and I got offered to do Reiki at a spa in London. And it was a really beautiful spa. And they said, but they couldn't really understand what Reiki really was. They just knew they wanted to have me doing it there. And they just said, well, I mean, the biggest thing in the spa is that people leave feeling really happy. So can you guarantee that? And I was like, no, I actually can't. And I wouldn't want to, because all I know is during that work that things are moving and things are shifting, things are being felt, things are being witnessed. I can't guarantee how someone's going to leave that experience. And it's really hard in this work, right? Because we're not selling transformation.
No.
We are selling a deep level of holding and witnessing and inquiry. But it's not always going to look fun when you get out the session. And in some cases, you can leave crying, feeling really wounded, because it's part of the healing process. And we allow that to happen on a physical level. Like, we know if you get a blister, it's going to be really painful before it heals. And it's just like an obvious part of the healing process. Your body knows what to do. And we have to trust that emotionally and mentally and spiritually too, that the discomfort is always going to be a part of that healing for it to move and shift in a different way.
Yeah, and the more you go through those cycles, the more you're like, when you do have a darker time, you're like, oh, this is hard, but I know I need to just sit in it. But the first time it happens, it is really disorientating. It is really painful. But yeah, the Reiki session thing as well, that's the whole point, isn't it? Reiki knows what you need. Reiki will shift emotions that you are ready to shift. And you need to sometimes express them out of your body, and that might be tears. So yeah, you can't say you're going to come into the spa and have a gorgeous time. You might, but you might not. So I love that. Did you end up doing sessions there?
No, it's just like, I was like, the sessions are real.
Yeah.
And real just means anything could happen. And it's like, you know, what I love about Reiki is how we name the experiences. We name that your tummy might rumble. And that's just energy moving, or you might be hungry. Like, there's just so many things, right? There's so many things that can only be felt. And when you're allowing the entirety of someone's humanness to exist, anything is possible. And we normalize and welcome all of that.
Yeah, no, that's what it's about. It's welcoming all emotions, not just the positive ones as well. And I think a lot of the time, you know, it's oh, I'm fine. It's like, oh, I need to be fine because, you know, I don't know how to talk about not being fine. And I think that's a problem. That's a huge problem in society, is we are not taught at a young age how to process or feel our emotions. That is one thing I feel really strongly about. I'm trying to work with schools and things to kind of equip children with the tools to move through the world in a way connected to themselves. Because how else do you do it? How else do we change it? It's got to start as young as possible, isn't it? Do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like so baked into education, society. There's so many different factors. And I think what we said before about that fear or the unwillingness to go into the work because it feels scary, it feels hard. How do you just sit in discomfort? How do you sit in darkness? And the word you said there is tools. None of us are equipped to just go into the work by ourselves, no tools, sit in the dark room, feel all your emotions, and then be like, yeah, I feel great now. It's like, we're not supposed to do that. I think the thing that we often forget with the work, in whatever capacity you're doing the work, is you need support, you need tools to help you through it. And everyone's tools look different, everyone's capacity looks different. So I could not have done any of that inner work without my therapist. The times when I do, it is not as deep, perhaps. I have the daily constant work that I do all the time. I'm always checking in. And that's the level of work I know that I can do myself. And there's been topics where I know that I can just work through it myself. And there's been topics I'm like, I'm not even going to touch that unless I have space holders who can work through that and hold my hand through it. It is as simple as, you know, if you're isolated in your community, no one's expecting you to go into that dark space to do the work by yourself, because you need to have, I have in my book this like idea of like this breakdown insurance. You need to have this breakdown insurance that if you are having the breakdown moment, you need to prove to your mind that you will get through it. You have support, you can handle it. Otherwise, you're just never going to convince yourself to do it. So I know that with every topic that I'm actively looking at, I have this almost inner breakdown insurance of, okay, have I been nourishing myself this week? Have I been looking after myself right now? If I haven't, I don't need to be unearthing some deep trauma because my body physically has not got the space to do that. Have I been overgiving? Have I been caring for a lot of people at the minute? If so, I do not have time to be doing that deep excavation work. Do I have community around me right now? Do I have a friend I can tell that I'm doing this work with? Do I have my therapist? Do I have body workers, Reiki Masters? Like, am I being supported through this? If I can say that yes, 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 I'll then do it. If not, it's not a loving choice. It's not a loving choice for me to pick up the journal, to do whatever work is needed, because I just don't have the capacity to be in it safely.
Yeah, because you can also go the other way, can't you? And try and, you know, be stuck in doing the work and enter like spiritual bypassing. And so doing the work, how would you put it into a sentence? You know, because I think of it as an unlearning of everything that you have built, beliefs that don't serve you, or where we've repressed emotions and we've put them in the body. Again, I think of it as facing the parts of ourselves that, you know, we've chosen to suppress or run from. And then because that kind of blurs the filter of the world that you see and you move through on a day-to-day basis. And I often say that what doing the work has done for me is I thought I was, fine and okay. My life wasn't terrible, but I was actually seeing the world in black and white, and I am seeing it in colour now, and it is just so different. It's subtle, but it's not subtle. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how would you, if someone's like, right, I get all this, what does doing the work mean in a sentence? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say that doing the work is this process of remembering. It's remembering who you really are before the world told you who you should be. It's a process of deep questioning, deep feeling, and deep being. And often the route into that is by doing things, and it's doing any kind of practices or embodiment work or whatever it is that you need to be able to get to that place of deep remembering. And most importantly, it is an ongoing process. There's no beginning or end date. There is this perpetual cycle of doing the work not as chore, not as labor, not as job, but as a loving, kind thing to do for yourself if you're a human exists on this planet.
Absolutely. It's the biggest gift you can give yourself, isn't it?
It is. And I think it's knowing that it's not, we put so much weight and emphasis on doing the work, and it's a huge honor to do it.
Definitely, 100%.
Because not everyone has the capacity to do it. Everyone has the tools, the community, the support to do it. There are moments when you're just in survival mode. Like this year, I've definitely felt that, the surface level work, which is the constant checking in, the making sure, is always a non-negotiable for me. And obviously I'm still in therapy every week and all that stuff. But I know that this year I've had so many big circumstances happen in my family, in my friendship group. Like, there's just so much that's been happening that I've just been running on survival. I know that I've not done the level of processing that I would normally do when I have more capacity.
Yes, that's
and
really
sometimes all you need to know, all that I need to know is I'm aware that there's stuff I'm not looking at. I'm aware exactly what the stuff I'm not looking at is. I just do not have the capacity or the resilience to go into that space to do with it right now, because it's still happening. Like, there's still things happening. I think there's something really interesting and beautiful about when you do the work, it gives you that level of awareness of self. So I'm aware of myself enough to know when the work just is not going to happen. And I think that has to be a part of it. I think we assume that the work only looks like this active processing, journaling, writing it out, feeling the feelings, doing workshops, doing courses, doing.
Yeah.
When actually doing the work gives you the space to just be.
And process all of that in your body. Yeah. It's not always an action. And when I look back over the last few years for me, I now see that the reason I've been given solitude and kind of space. I mean, I say that I've always been busy. I'm a busy person, but I have been given times for me. And I just think at the time I was like, oh my God, this is awful. Like, the reason it all started for me, because it was 3 years ago when I went for a big breakup, and it just catapulted me out. It came out of nowhere and it just threw me into the darkness. And I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like, that's such a privilege, and really that I was given by the universe this time to process this. And it happened quickly. It was as though the universe was like, no, you're off your path, we need to get you back on, you've got things you need to do. My soul was like, boom. And at the time, incredibly hard, incredibly overwhelming, but it happened very quickly. I sort of, all this stuff, I just knew what to do. It was activated in me. And I look back and I'm like, not everyone gets given that time. Yeah. I know it's part of this is why you shouldn't compare, because I do believe part of my soul journey, I was given this time because I needed to unearth all this stuff and to put me onto what I'm supposed to do for the world and for me. But yeah, I'm really grateful. I know it sounds silly, but privileged that I got to sit in the darkness, that I got to face myself and I live on my own privilege and do that work on my own. Because even if you are in a relationship, you've got to think about someone else at that point. And obviously I wanted to really do the work so that when I have a next relationship, I know who I am to the core, and I'm not going to be shape-shifting to fit what someone else wants of me. And that feels powerful and beautiful and a privilege. Yeah,
I would 100% agree. I think the biggest privilege of my life was same. I had I was in a 7-year relationship, and we broke up around my Saturn return, obviously.
Awful.
Because everything happens around Saturn return. And I changed my whole life around that period. But Yeah, I think I was probably single for like 7 to 8 years. And I've been in my current relationship for, I would say, like 18 months. And the time that I was single was such a rich, amazing time. And I've always named it as a privilege, where society often feels like it's not.
Yeah.
And that it should be a time of like, you're just waiting for
Yeah.
someone to arrive to choose you. And I was just like, I had the time of my life.
Yeah, what a
because I was being with myself on the deepest possible level. And it changes everything. It changes how you show up in partnership. It changes the kind of partner that you call in. It changes everything. And it doesn't mean that you can't do the work when you have a partner, because you can do really rich work whenever you are present, which is all the time. But it really just gives you a deeper sense of self, because as we know, it's like, with the filter of romantic love or even in friendships, you can move, you can shift, your worldview expands, and often that worldview often means that you can inhabit somebody else's truths, inhabit someone else's values, inhabit somebody else's plans. But if you have this real solid knowing of self, it is a game changer. And I'm just so proud of myself and you for welcoming that time as the privilege it is. Because what is more important than just having that space to truly understand and know? And I think, the misconception, and I always, roll my eyes at lots of dating advice that says, well, you just won't meet someone unless you've done the work.
Yeah.
You won't meet someone until you love yourself. And it's like, no, that's bullshit. You're inherently lovable, full stop. You don't need to find self-love before you can find a romantic relationship. You don't need to do the work to then, it's not like cause and effect. And I think, especially in manifesting talk, it can often look like if you do the work, if you call in, have the values of the partner you want, you will then receive the partner. And it's like, it's just not cause and effect. There's people who just don't do the work who have romantic love. Like, it's
that's
just
what I was going to say. Like,
cause and effect.
Most relationships, aren't based on what you've just said. But I do think you kind of attract someone at your similar vibration.
100%.
And that's the work,
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, there are times where it's frustrating. I'm like, I want to meet someone. But it's also, I just know that it is going to happen at the right time. And all I do now is me. I focus on me, and I maintain my vibration, and I keep doing what I feel called to do by my intuition. And when I meet someone, I will just know more if it's a match or not. Whereas before, it might be the case of, well, society says I'm more worthy in a relationship. I mean, I've never been a settler, to be honest, but it's just not an option. I like and love who I am so much that it's just not an option. I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than with someone that wasn't right for me. Yeah,
because the work gives you peace.
Such peace.
It gives you peace in so many directions. Like, my peace with relationships was, I just love this life for myself. This is my plan A life. And I'm not willing, I had my list of who I wanted in a partner. It was a very, very long list. I still have it on my phone. And I had all these values of who I wanted to be in a relationship with. And I just said out loud to Spirit, do not bring me anyone who isn't this. I'm not interested. I do not feel like it is a burden or a sadness to spend the entirety of my life single with amazing community, family, women, all of it. I'm just not interested in anyone who's not this person. And I had made that peace, and I said, if this person should arrive in 5 years, 10 years, or never, great, but I'm just not interested.
That's exactly how I feel.
And I would go on dates, and I would know very quickly. I'd just be like, okay, well, this was a lovely time, but this is not the person I'm looking for. And I knew that I'd done the work enough to be able to feel in my body when that person was getting closer or more further away. I could feel in my body that level of self-trust that I'm making great choices for myself when I was dating. And so the work doesn't give you the partner. It gives you the ability to choose. It gives you the ability to have peace. And also it gives you the ability to be able to move through times when you feel lonely. And you want to name that, yes, I do want a relationship one day, but not at any cost. No. And it allows you to be discerning with who you're giving your love and your time to.
Yeah, because the world is set up for twos, isn't it, as well? So it can feel hard sometimes. So, but then I'm also like, I feel incredibly powerful that I can be on my own, and that I love my life. But at the same time, I do want it.
Yeah.
But I only want, as you said, the right person. And I say the same to Spirit, and they're like, I know we've got bodyguards. You're not getting anyone that's going to, you know, not be that person for you. So, you know, he's a certain kind of man that I want. And, you know, I don't like to say there's not many of them, because there are, but it is a certain type of frequency. It is a certain type of man that I want. And I know that it might need to line up properly.
Yeah. And I just think there is, you know, I know that my faith in spirituality and the universe and spirit and timing and all of that is that at one point I lost the faith and I lost hope for sure. Some of that peacefulness looked like, okay, so I know exactly who I want. I'm not seeing a lot of people who embody those characteristics. Maybe it's just not going to happen for me. And I had that belief. And then when I met my partner, I was still in this place of just like, yeah, I know who it is, but I didn't have this level of hope and faith that he had, for example. And there's no right or wrongs, because I think, again, like there's this assumption that to receive the person, you have to have all this hope and you have to be believing, you have to have all this faith. I didn't have any faith like the month before I met him. I was just like, yeah, I'm just not interested, really. And you can still have amazing experiences. And I think it's part of that, really, a mix of toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing. It's like, well, you have to always maintain that vibe. And it's like, no, I did not have the vibe. I really didn't have the vibe.
Sometimes that's what makes it happen.
100%.
Quietly confident, like, you know, I'm good, whatever.
Exactly. And I just think it's like, just trust in the journey and trust in the timing that all of these experiences will happen as they're supposed to unfold. And I think that peacefulness also, you know, we've been speaking about romantic relationships, but it also looks like careers. It also looks like work. It is that peacefulness of trusting that what is supposed to be a part of your story will be a part of your story.
Yeah, and your role in that is being as connected to yourself as you can be, so you can hear your intuition and all the little nudges, like go to that event, you know, send that email, because that's sort of, for me anyway, feels like what unfolds in my life on a day-to-day basis, because I'm showing up for my intuition every day, not thinking about the future too much, because that is when you kind of lose the self-trust, the more you focus on the future. And I know it's not easy being present all the time, like, you know, we're all human, but I think that's powerful. And you talk a lot in your book around, you know, your intuition and hearing that. And the more you do the work, the more you hear your intuition. And that is game changer. Yeah,
like I was helping a woman at the station yesterday, and I texted my mum afterwards, and she was like, you always end up in these situations where, you know, you're either like helping someone who needs help on like the train or whatever it is. And she was like, why do you think that is? And I just said, I think because I'm so connected to myself and the world because of my presence. I've always been deeply rooted in the present moment. I witness and notice everything. Almost the things that are often overlooked, like the really mundane details, like I always spot them. I'm in love with a lot of things that people are not in love with, like pigeons. And I just see the world like as that inherently alive, magical place.
Yes.
And as a result of that, I can always just sense something. I can sense when someone's not okay. And it's not in like this really bold gesture, just like in a small frequency of just like noticing that their brow was like a bit furrowed, and I just feel called to then ask, are you okay? And it is just like that constant practice of feeling, connecting to everything around you and within you, that gives you that ability to then sense check, oh, I think that person might not be okay.
Yeah, and that will be your vibration that you're giving off as well. That person will feel safe when you ask them, are you okay? They'll feel safe to say, no, I'm actually not okay, because you're a healer. Okay, lastly, Vogue mentioned you as redefining spirituality for the modern crew. So what does that mean for you?
I think spirituality for me was never about practices. It was never this, you know, long list of, do you like doing Reiki, astrology? Do you do tarot? It's like this thing of doing. Spirituality for me was always about connection. It's connection to self, others, planet, and also what is beyond.
Yeah, bigger.
And the uncertainty and the unknown of what is beyond. And it doesn't matter what you believe in. Like, I'm not really interested in what people believe in. It's about the fact that you believe in something beyond what you can see and comprehend. And in a society that so praises what we can see and what we can touch and what is logical and what makes sense, we miss out on so much beauty and magic because we just can't always see it, but we can feel it and experience it. So spirituality to me is just life. It's us living, it's having a life that is full. It's having a life that I guess modern living tries to cheat us out of. It's having a life that feels filled with possibility and wonder and magic. And a lot of that is right here. It's in you noticing, you know, the leaf that's fallen from a tree.
Yeah, I'm going to say the beautiful light through the trees.
Yeah, it's just those really, that's what we're here for. I don't believe that we were born to have this purpose beyond living. I think our purpose is to live and to experience all that this life has to offer.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And, you know, me and you were speaking before the podcast about how these things, a spiritual awakening isn't a choice a lot of the time. And I think, you know, when people are like, oh, I don't feel like that. And sometimes it's okay that you don't, you're not spiritual. You don't, you know, regard yourself as a spiritual person, because we are all spiritual beings underneath it all. But yeah, sometimes I look back and I think where I am now, I wouldn't say it's hard, isn't it? I did choose it, but also the start of it, I did not choose it. You know, it happened. I didn't have a choice but to respond to life. And through that, I have now been able to make choices that feel aligned. But yeah, I just want that people to know that sometimes it's not a choice. It's part of your path, and it's part of, you know, what you came on to this earth to do, I believe, anyway. But yeah, the way you put that was really beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. You know, we're all here to live a very different life.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? You don't compare.
Yeah, and if you are here to live a life of purpose and growth and inquiry and love and empathy and intuition, then trust that you will be pushed onto that path,
don't have a choice.
whether you like it or not. But I think once you are on it, that's when, for me, my life changed in like the most beautiful way. And even with years like this year, which have felt really hard to be in, if I hadn't done the work, if I didn't have the tools, the resource, this inherent trust and faith that I'm going to be okay, I wouldn't be able to make it through this year. And so many of the, you know, the really hard things have happened in my life. But even on those really, really, really dark days, and it's something that I said in my book, but I always speak about Glennon Doyle, and she always says that it's okay to, you might not know it. Sorry, you might know it, but you might not know it today. Yeah. And I love that. And I think that's always something that gets me through. It's like, I know I'm going to be okay. I know this is all going to work out. I know I can handle the darkness, but today I just don't know it. And that's okay. And it's okay to not know it today, but the next day you will know it again.
Yeah, I think that's really important. You're allowed to have those days. We're human. Okay, amazing. I loved this chat with you. Is there anything else you would like to leave the listeners with?
No, I think that's all. I think, just remembering that our purpose is just to be here and to savor all this life has to offer.
Amazing, thank you. And where can the listeners find you?
So I'm on Instagram, and my website is also Giselle LPM.
And they can buy your amazing book.
And my book is out in all bookstores called Take It In.
Yeah, I really recommend it. It's such a good human take on doing the work. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Giselle.